What's up, bro?
Hey, how's it going? Go
Hey.
Texas. How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Not much, man. How are
Yeah,
you?
sorry about that. I don't, it's like technical difficulties. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Well, I like technology. I teach with technology right now, especially when we're at quarantine, because I'm an educator.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I don't enjoy it much. I like being around people and talking to them, make contact with them. It's really hard to educate people or be in touch with them via Zoom or thanks to technology, but it's kind of like a preference type of thing.
I completely agree.
So how you
So
been?
I've been very well. How have you been doing? I'm seeing some of my peeps been jumping on and some of your peeps, so this is good.
Yes. Yeah. So meantime, I'm going to translate very shortly. I'm bad in translation. Hopefully, I'll get it done. So the first, are you ready for the questions, or you want to start with something about fasting? How do you want to run it? Because it's technically your life now.
No, I saw you send me questions, but I like keeping it organic and I just like answering, real. I don't want to
Okay.
research things. I like keeping things free flow. So,
Amen to
um,
that.
Keto Nurse, what's up? Um, yeah, so we can just roll right into it, but maybe you can tell people what we're going to do on this
Okay.
live in both
Absolutely.
English and in Farsi.
Farsi. Yes. So what we're going to talk about in about a few days, we're going to enter Ramadan and Middle Eastern. They do dry fasting from sometime between this time of the year would be around 5 a.m., depending on where you are, what part of the world you're in, 5 a.m. to somewhere between 8, 9 p.m. And you will be not eating or drinking anything. پس گوش گفتم که در چند روز آینده رمضان شروع میشه و از تقریبا 5 و 6 صبح تا 8 و 9 شب بستگی به کجا هستید درای فست خواهیم بود و اینکه سوالمون این هستش که تشنگی رو چجوری برطرف کنیم توی یک دام. So the first question is a lot of people, especially we're entering the summer weather, and it's going to be hot. A lot of people are worried about, so we're going to take a lot of protein and a lot of fat, and that makes us thirsty. And we never tried it. Previous years, most of us, including myself, I wasn't on keto, and I was eating tons of vegetables, everything. What can we have before we start the dry fast and afterwards, within that eating period, to 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 keep up basically and not get thirsty
What can you have prior to the fast?
prior or after, because we don't want to get last thing you don't last thing is you want to get dehydrated.
Right. So definitely looking at it depends if you're keto or not, how you might approach it. If you're not keto, then maybe doing something like Gatorade, where you're getting electrolytes and you're getting some simple carbohydrates that your body could use to fuel you. That's osmolarity is good in terms of absorption, won't cause GI distress and things like that. On the other side, if you were keto, I might, or kind of more paleo and avoiding sugar, then I would look to things like bone broth. That would be an excellent source of electrolytes, some collagen protein, and as well as a number of nutrients from the bone marrow. Um, that would be ideal. And of course, if you're using supplements, you could use things like MCTs, exogenous ketones, things like that. And certainly just salt. I mean, for all the expensive electrolyte formulas out there, the biggest thing is, and how long is the dry fast?
About 18 hours.
Yeah, 18 hours. So the biggest thing there is you have to get into several days fast and maybe be having to do things of a manual nature where you'd be truly depleted, like to really be concerned about the other electrolytes like potassium and chloride and calcium and magnesium. mean, though we're deficient in magnesium, and I certainly encourage magnesium supplementation, the biggest thing that you have to concern yourself with when it comes to electrolytes and being depleted is sodium. And so sodium is easy to get. And, for all these expensive electrolyte formulas that are $30, $40, $50, $80, it just blows my mind. You can just use salt. And I love something like Redmond Real Salt, or Mediterranean sea salt, or whatever, like something that's Dead Sea salt, maybe, like something that's
Himalayan salt too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I'm going to quickly translate what you said, and mainly it was about electrolytes. خب گفتن که اگر که کیتون نیستید، خب کربوهیدرات های سیمپل و گیجریت از این انرژی درینک هایی که توش الکترولایت هستن. اگر که کیتو هستید و پلیو هستید، خب باید آب قلم، مغز استخوان و کلاژن. Do you mean when you say collagen protein, you mean the powder supplement, or naturally getting it from
naturally derived from the bone broth?
Naturally derived. کلاژنش هم از طریق آب قلم باشه. و اگر که ساپلمنتی هستن، MCT oil، سالت، پتاسیم و منیزیم رو خیلی کردن که ساپلمنتی باشه که میتونن اگر که لو هستن حتما اجراش بکنن. ولی مهمترین چیزی که کردن سدیم هستش که حالا از برندایی که اینجا هستش به نام ریال سالت، مدیترانه‌ای و نمک هیمالیا هم هستن. What do we do with the fluid part? So these are as far as electrolytes that comes with the fluid. What is the best way? Is it better? Because we're not having fruits. So early in the morning or after we break our fast, is it necessary to have tons of vegetables because it comes with fluids in our body, or simply just have water before we start?
It just depends on how much experience with fasting that you have. One of the things that's going to make this a lot easier is if, one, you have fasting experience, and two, if you have keto experience, so that you have upregulated MCT transporters, which help you utilize ketones. And if you're used to going into fasting, and you're used to being low carb and in a ketogenic state, then your ketones will naturally go up a lot faster, and you won't be hungry, and you won't have brain fog, and you won't be searching for things to eat. And, it's just much easier. But if someone's used to eating like a high glycemic, high carbohydrate diet, this is going to be much more difficult. And if they're used to eating, if they've trained their blood sugar to eating 6 small meals a day and snacking throughout the day, again, it's going to be much harder. So I would say if you're a whole food eater, like paleo, if you're a once a day or twice a day eater, it's easier, like OMAD. If you're a keto dieter, it's easier. And if you're someone who's used to fasting, it's easier. And if you're someone who's good at getting their electrolytes and hydrating, it's easier. So those are things that you could do ahead of time to make this whole process much easier.
So if I'm keto adapted, that's going to help me also with the level of ketones that I'm going to have in my bloodstream. That's going to help me with the not get thirsty and not get dehydrated as well. Or that's to keep me lasting food wise and not get fatigue and weak.
To some degree, the former, but definitely the latter. I would say that, and just because you're more keto adapted doesn't mean that ketones are necessarily higher in the blood. It actually is quite opposite. As you get more adapted, yes, you become better at making ketones, but ketones won't be as high in the blood because you're using them better because of those transporters that I was talking about that upregulate. And that's why some people that are chasing those numbers get frustrated. And I always ask them, well, how do you feel? But
Hmm.
one of the things that when ketones are elevated, it's simulating starving, but it's also helping you be less hungry, less thirsty, less confused, so that you can find food, so that you can survive. It also does things to protect lean body mass, muscle mass, so that you can survive. It's going to use any available carbohydrate, any available fat first before it taps into muscle. And that's one of the powerfully anti-catabolic effects of ketones being elevated. They're muscle sparing.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to quickly translate that.
Okay.
خب چیزی که گفتن این هستش که خیلی بستگی داره قدرت ما، تجربه ما توی فست کردن و تجربه ما توی کیتوژنیک. این تجربه خیلی مهمه به خاطر که کمک به ما میکنه که کیتون ترانسپورترها در بدن خیلی سریعتر ایجاد بشه و این اتفاق باعث میشه که ما راحتتر بتونیم حس گرسنگی رو کنترل بکنیم. پس تجربه در کیتو و تجربه در فست کردن. اگه کسی هستید که 6 وعده در روز میخوردید و تازه میخواد کیتوژنیک رو همراه ماه رمضان اجرا بکنید، خب براتون سخت‌تر خواهد بود تا کسی که 1 یا 2 وعده میخورده، یا کسی که از غذاهای طبیعی استفاده میکرده، پلیو کیتو بوده و ساپلمنت و اینها نبوده. مطلب بعدی که اشاره کردن در مورد کیتو اداپشن بود. کیتو اداپشن خیلی وقتا در خیلی از آدما، کسایی که کیتو اداپتد میشن، تعداد کیتون هاشون میاد پایین. بدن شما راحتتر کیتون درست میکنه، ولی تو نامبرها شما یه مقدار بالا پایین خواهید شد و باید اون ملاک نیست. نامبر کیتون ها ملاک نیستش و اینکه حالتون چجوریه، چجوری فیل میکنید. Um, that's I never knew that that would be really hard to translate. It's kind of hard. Sugar addiction is the next question. So a lot of people, when it comes to sugar, a lot of people think that that's necessary for the brain. And last year they were doing Ramadan, breaking their fast with a little bit sugary beverages or a piece of sweets because they think the sugar of your blood would drop and that's bad for your brain. Um, I know you're always whenever we're doing the fasting, even if it's not dry, your suggestion is go for bone broth and the fact that you don't need it. But what do we do with the sugar craving?
The sugar craving is there because you've trained your body to anticipate that. So either by getting real sugar or by things that taste like sugar, and your body then anticipates that carbohydrate because you've wired it for that. So, you know, when you taste sweet, your body is saying, okay, here comes sugar. And then the sugar doesn't come, and you've already started making insulin and some of the other apparatus that would revolve around how to process sugar. And what happens? You feel like hungry. And that's why a lot of times when we have these diet products, we end up eating more because we're hungry for the carbohydrate we didn't get because our blood sugar drops. Also, sweet overrides satiety, overrides feelings of fullness. And so it's very common to overeat for that reason as well. So there's a number of things that, and the easiest thing is to get off of sweet, get off of sugar, and get back to, food that's more savory. Instead of being trained to constantly have sweet, at every meal or at the end of every meal as a dessert or as a reward for when you're good, start doing different things to reward yourself besides sweet. And then it gets much easier to not have these sugar cravings during your dry fast. But one of the best things that you can do too is actually consistently fast. And 18 hours is approximately like intermittent fasting, what most healthy people are doing every single day.
Okay, perfect. And I have a question on that. Oh boy, I'm going to translate this because we've been discussing sugar addiction. اعتیاد به شکر که افطارمون رو با شکر باید باز میکردیم و الان همش دلمون شکر میخواد، به خاطر این هستش که به این تقاضای بدن که شکر مصرف بکنید مدام ما داریم پاسخ میدیم، چه با شکر چه با محصولاتی که شیرین به نظر میان، یعنی شیرین کننده های کیتویی. وقتی که بدن شما مزه شیرینی در بدن شما میشه، بدن فکر میکنه که آخ جون شکر پاشد اومد و انسولین ترشح میکنه و موارد دیگه ای که همراه انسولین برای پروسه شدن شکر هستن داخل بدنن، در حالی که شکر به بدن نرسیده. به خاطر همین هستش که وقتی که محصولات شیرین کننده در رژیم کیتوژنیک رو مصرف میکنیم، گرسنمون بیشتر میشه، از لاغری فاصله میگیریم، از وزن فاصله میگیریم و بیشتر هم میخوریم. به جای اینکه شکر بخوریم و تیست و شکر یا دیزرت بخوریم یا دسر بخوریم، بهتره که چیزهایی رو بخوریم که از لحاظ مواد غذایی بتونن سیومون بکنن و غنی باشن. و گفتن که یکی از کارهایی که میتونید بکنید که ادیکشن شوگر رو کم بکنید فست هست، یعنی همینجوری فست بکنید. Is everyday fasting, if we go OMAD every day, are we going to get in one meal the amount of protein our body needs, or that would end up, is how we regulate that if we do every day for a while? How would you explain that?
There's so many things that happen in terms of epigenetics and enzymatic changes that this doesn't happen immediately. If you radically change your eating style, whether it's timing, whether it's macronutrients, types of foods, etc., like you have to give your body time to adjust. But absolutely, you could be eating once a day, and the rate at which you're oxidizing protein would change. The rate at which you're utilizing protein would change. The rate at which you're digesting protein would change. All that happens as a result. Your body is very efficient at making changes so that you can survive. And this is, some cultures do this. Some cultures eat keto. Some cultures eat only carbohydrates. Some cultures, it's once a day. Some cultures, it's 6 times a day. So, whatever. We are the great adapters.
Okay.
It just doesn't happen easily in one day or 1 week. And that's why, like with fasting, be it intermittent fasting, extended fasting, you just get better and better at it over time.
What if it results in losing hair if they do it a lot of time? Is that because they don't consume enough protein when they break the fast, and not necessarily because of the fast itself?
I didn't understand that question. Say that again.
Okay. So what if somebody does OMAD for a while and then they start losing their hair because they didn't perhaps get enough protein in one meal? That has nothing to do with them fasting. That's just they're not eating right when they break their fast. Am I correct?
Possibly, yes. I mean, I think that the easiest answer there is that, you go to, if you're doing 3 meals a day, you go to 2 meals a day. If you're, and then you go to 1 meal a day. It's kind of like if you're doing intermittent fasting, you start out with a 12 and 12, then you go to, 14 and 10, and then you go to 16 and 8, and maybe you can get to a 20 and 4, whatever, or every other day, or whatever you want to do. But I think it's better to transition over time.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and translate that. گفتن که کمک میکنه به شما اگر هر روز فست باشید، مشکلی برای شما پیش نمیاد و میتونید، بدن ما خیلی خودش رو اجاست میکنه و اون ریتی که باید پروتئین بگیره به جای اینکه تو 3 تا میل بگیره، ریتش رو چنج میکنه. ولی سوال دومی که ازشون کردم که چرا خیلی ها مثلا توی اومد که هستن مثلا موهاشون میریزه چون توی یه وعده نتونستن، گفت بله، به خاطری که یهویی میرن اومد میشن و این ترانزیشن نباید باشه. مثلا باید 12 ساعت فست باشن، 12 ساعت بخورن و یواش یواش اون فست رو ادامه بدن، یا اینکه به روشی که هر روز فست نباشن، بعضی از روزها فست باشن. یعنی یه ترانزیشن خیلی مهم هستش. So I did ask OMAD. I did. Okay, last thing is exercising. When is the best time to exercise? A lot of people say when you're empty stomach after an extended fasting, you would lose muscles if you do weights, cardio, or just simply exercise at home. So, what are your thoughts on that? What do you suggest? Is that even true?
Well, that goes back to what I was talking about. Like, to some degree, if you're a high carbohydrate dieter, yes, that is true to some degree. You will end up using more lean body mass for fuel when there isn't carbohydrate around. If you're someone that's traditionally been a ketogenic dieter and you've trained yourself, or like you're someone who's like a CrossFitter that's used to depleting glycogen often, then you would be more efficient at being in ketosis and thereby sparing lean body mass more efficiently and using fat for fuel. So that's where you can be more efficient. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So این قضیه که ازشون پرسیدم که ورزش چجوری میشه در رژیم کیتو. خیلی میگن که اگر که فست باشی و بخوای وزنه بزنی، وزن ماسل‌هات از دست میدی، ماهیچه‌هات رو داری از دست میدی. گفتم برای کسایی هستش که خیلی وابسته به کربوهیدرات هستن و اینها رو مصرف میکنن، بله در اون حالت میتونن که ماسل‌هاشون رو از دست بدن و به خاطری که در نبود کربوهیدرات چون بدن خیلی عادت داره میره سراغ ماهیچه‌ها ولی کسایی که کیتو هستن، کراسفیتر هستن، بدنشون اداپته شده که فت رو استفاده بکنن و چربی رو استفاده بکنن برای fuel. When is the best time to exercise when we're doing fasting in this month? Is it right before, after? Because we're not drinking fluids either. So
yeah, that's going to just depend from person to person. Again, how much you've trained your body to, like, if you're someone who typically exercises fasted, like let's say you go straight to the gym first thing in the morning and then you might eat after, you're going to be better adapted at dealing with fasted training. If you're someone that's, used to getting up in the morning, having a huge breakfast, and then maybe you train later in the day, like this is going to be more difficult. And I would probably not use this time to radically change the way you work out or approach your workouts. Like if you're used to being fed, this wouldn't be the time to retrain your body. It's something that I would progress at over time. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect. ازشون پرسیدم که چه زمانی بهترین حالت هستش که ورزش بکنن. گفتش واقعا شخص به شخص. اگه کسی هستید که صبح از خواب پا میشدید، شکم گشنه میرفتید و بعدش هم فستتون ادامه میدادید، قاعدتا میتونید صبحها انجام بدید. اگر کسی هستید که خب میرفتید ورزش میکردید و بعدش عادت داشتید که یه چیزی رو بخورید، خب الان این زمان مناسبی نیستش که بخواید عادتاتون رو عوض بکنید. یک دفعه سر هر روز فست بودن هم همینو گفتن. یه چیزی گیمی هستش که باید بیلداپ بکنید و هر روز درش بهتر بشید و تو زمان به خودتون بدید تا بتونید این کار رو انجام بدید و اداپشن بکنید. پس بدنتون خیلی بستگی داره. When are we going to do? My questions are done. I'm going to go to the comments if they have any questions. بچه اگه questionی دارید الان بپرسید. When are we going to do this with the COVID-19 situation? When are we going to do the 3-day fasting again? Because I'm in already, you know that.
Yes, I know, and that's the thing lately. It's just been I don't know, it's been a weird time to try and think of that. I think I like fasting because it's supposed to be de-stressing. But right now you have what's called a stress bucket, okay? Like so, and it's called allostatic load. And you can only have so much stress. And if you add stress and you're already topped off, whether it's good stress, eustress, or bad stress, distress, either way, your body just perceives it as too much and it's an overload. and that can lead to immune system compromisation, like all kinds of issues. So I don't like the idea right now when people are mentally stressed and possibly physically stressed, like adding that to the equation, like, because it can be stressful on top of other stress.
Right.
Um, so that's why I try and teach the ways to fast, like where you do work on things like gratitude, where you do take walks, where you do meditate, where do um, saunas, and things like that, where you do some creative writing, like instead of like fasting might not be good, like if you're trying to continue your life at the same pace that you're going. That's what I try and tell people is like to not, go at this high, super high pace, like ridiculous workouts and 16-hour work days, and I'm adding fasting to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean extended fasting.
Right.
So I really want to get back to it, but I also want to, have COVID-19 kind of go down a notch and then we can get back to it.
Perfect. ازشون درباره این که فست 72 ساعته دوباره کی میذارن گفتم فست 72 ساعته نمیتونه زمانی باشه که استرس براتون ایجاد بکنه و استرس ممکنه خیلی از برای امیون سیستم خوب نباشه و اکستندد فست که بیشتر از مثلا 72 ساعت و 3 روز و اینهاست، خب الان شرایطش نیستش که انجام بده و بعد زمانی باشه که با یه مقدار آزادی عمل داشته باشید که اصلا فست باید زمانی بشه که شما ریلکس بکنید و اگه قرار باشه که همه این اضافه بشه با اون استرس های روزانه همه چی خراب خواهد شد. What about if you want to do carnivore in this month? Any changes? Anything to consider? Being a carnivore?
It's interesting. Like when people talk about carnivore, they think it's very simple. You're just eating meat. It's kind of like when people talk about keto, they think they know what they mean, but keto is really just a set of macronutrient ratios. I could eat all junk food and processed food and be keto. I could eat paleo style, like whole food, and be keto. I could be vegan and be keto. And they're all very different. And with carnivore, there's definitely nuances too. I could have a very high fat, like cook all my meats in rendered fat, have fattier cuts of meat. I could have, or I could have very lean cuts, and I could have organs. And, are you having organs? Are you having bone? Are you having connective tissue and skin? There's so much to even carnivore that there's kind of like a carnivore keto, like I said, that's higher fat. And then there's kind of a glucogenic carnivore where you're eating kind of more on the lean side and you're actually doing gluconeogenesis, converting that protein to glucose more often than not.
Okay. And if you're losing weight, you definitely want to stay on the fattier cuts, right?
If you're trying to lose weight?
Yes.
Yes, if you're trying to lose weight, I think doing the keto carnivore would be ideal with the higher fat. I've done it before because it's essentially zero carb, high fat. Your ketones get very high, and it is hard to eat. You're feeling full, you're feeling energized, and it's very effective.
And hard to sleep because I've tried it too.
Mm-hmm.
اوکی. ازشون درباره کارنیور این ماه صحبت کردم، گفتن که همون مثل که کیتو هسته شما میتونید کیتو رو ویگن باشید، کیتو اجرا بکنید و مدل‌های مختلف و دو نوع متداول هستش توی کارنیور، بستگی داره به بدنتون. گوشتایی رو که چرب هستن میتونید از کاتای استفاده کنید که گوشت چرب هستن، به این میگن کارنیور کیتو. و میتونید آدم‌هایی باشید که لین ساید باشید و کارنیور اونجوری باشید و گوشتایی رو بگیرید که چرب نباشن، مثلا از ارگان میتا استفاده بکنید، دل و جگر و اینجور چیزها و داشته باشید. ولی برای کسی که پرسیدم ازشون، برای کسی که میخواد وزن از دست بده کدومش بهتر هست، گفتن اونی کسی که از کات هایی که چرب هستن استفاده بکنن. Next question, and it might not be for Ramadan if you don't mind. The 75-25%, does our body really need on daily basis 75% fat? And I know it has to be 5 moderate protein because of the gluconeogenesis, and we don't want to go there. But if I'm counting my macros in an app and I'm short in fat, do I have to maintain the 75%, take an MCT shot, a shot of MCT, or can I sometimes stay at 65% fat and the rest, well, maintain my carbohydrates and my protein just a little bit? Do I have to maintain that 75%? Does my body need 75% every day?
That's a great question, and I'm seeing some of my people jump on here. And hey, Myra, hey, Shelly. But you have to first look at it as basically fat is being backfilled in there. Okay, so you're trying to stay as low carbohydrate as you can, so you can deplete carbohydrate in the body and switch fuel sources over to ketones, to using fat for fuel. Then with protein, you don't want that to get too high, because if you get over the 20-25%-ish range, you can start pushing into gluconeogenesis, where you're converting the protein to glucose. So it's key to keep carbohydrate low and protein moderate. Now, if you have more lean body mass, if you're a man, if you're a muscular man, if you're an exerciser and you're more active with your body, especially if you're lifting weights and doing resistance training, then you have more tolerance for carbohydrate and protein, and to not have it turn into glucose, because you're shuttling it into the muscle with these GLUT4 transporters. So the more active your muscle is and the more muscle you have, the more tolerance you have. And that's why women, especially sedentary women, tend to have a harder time and have a much narrower window of carbohydrates they can have to stay in ketosis, or protein. But the rest of it is backfilled for calories, so you get enough calories, and yes, you have essential fatty acids, but mostly just calories from the fat. And do you need it? No. It's a calorie equation. That's more what's happening. It's more because it's inert in terms of the impact on glucose. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes. So my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, keeping the carbohydrates low has a greater effect than keeping the fat high. Am I
Yes,
right?
definitely. 100%.
Okay.
Yes, because if you're just looking at grams and not looking at macronutrient ratios, you don't have to have any grams of fat. I mean, again, maybe you'd want your essential fatty acids, but which is a small number of grams. But that's filling in the energy equation for calories, so that you're not getting, I don't know, whatever that would be. Like, let's say you're not getting like 400 calories a day, like you're getting 2,000 calories a day. Like, you need to get your calories in, even if you're trying to lose weight. You don't want to be like an extreme caloric deficit chronically.
Right. So keep the calorie on the limit that it has to be, not more, and definitely not stay calorie deficient, right? I mean,
Yeah.
calorie, what's the word? I can't think of the word. When you're under the calorie that you need. Deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's not keto. We're not counting. Okay, I got it. Let me go ahead and translate that. So ازشون پرسیدم که واقعا این ریشو چربی آیا واقعا 75% و پروتئین، هممون میدونیم که مادرت باید باشه، پروتئین متوسط باید باشه، و های فت و کربوهیدرات چجوری هستش. گفتن وقتی که شما ورزشکار هستید، توانایی و خیلی بدن ورزشکار هستید، ویت میزنید، ورزش میکنید و وزنه کار انجام میدید. And then after this you can pick if some of your followers can go ahead and answer those questions too after translating this. گفتن اگه ورزشکار هستید خیلی از کالری که از کربوهیدرات یه مقدار اضافه تر و پروتئین اضافه تر میاد به خاطری که اون ترانسپورترهای رو دارید داخل بدنتون شیفت میشه توی ماسلاتون و اونقدر کارتون انجام نمیشه. اما وقتی که میخواید وزن از دست بدید اون کالری که در حدش هستش رو باید بیشتر نرید و از لانگ است که اون ریشیو رو انجام بدید شما میتونید به هدفتون برسید. ولی اینجوری نیستش که بخواید شات مثلا چه میدونم ام سی تی اول برسید که بخواید انجام بدید. و در آخرم ازشون پرسیدم که پایین آوردن نگه داشتن کربوهیدرات مفیدتر هست یا اینکه چربی زیاد خوردن برای داخل کیتوسیس. گفتن 100% کربوهیدرات رو پایین آوردن تاثیر بیشتری داره. Want to go with some questions that you pick?
Yeah, and someone said EPA, DHA, 60% of your brain is fat. Totally agree. Those get back to the essential fatty acids that I was talking about. And I'm not like discouraging eating fat. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that in terms of getting into ketosis, fat isn't necessary. The reason that we have fat is to backfill for calories.
Okay.
So
let me translate that.
Yeah.
I have to translate that. That's so, thank you. Oh man, I'm learning a lot. نمیگن که فت خوردن نیاز نیست. دارن میگن که شما کربوهیدرات رو پایین آوردن به شما کمک میکنه که تو فاز کیتوسیس برید، نه که اینکه چربی خوردن. چربی رو میخورید که سیر بمونید، نه که اینکه وارد کیتوسیس بشید. All right.
So, I mean, said differently, like when you're fasting, that's the most powerful way to increase ketosis, and you're not eating anything.
Mm-hmm.
So a way to still get calories, but be in ketosis and simulate fasting is to have fat. But then we have concerns about maintaining lean body mass over time and essential amino acids and things like that. So we try and get a certain amount of protein, but if that protein gets too high, we don't stay in ketosis as well. And then same with carbohydrate. The higher that gets, even from 0, the more it starts working against us, even if it's low glycemic. That's why a 0 carb diet's the most effective ketogenic diet. And a lower protein diet is going to be more effective for raising ketones. I'm not necessarily encouraging that, but that's what happens with cancer. They might do a 15% protein. Is that good long term to maintain lean body mass and what? No. But to stay out of cancer and elevate ketones as much as you can and keep glucose low, that's effective. Does that make sense?
So it really depends what your goal is. If you're treating 100%. And you need the number of ketones, let's say for cancer that you mentioned, you may go lower, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I got it, okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody can do it because everybody is on a different
Right, and if I was going to go lower, I'd have things that are anti-catabolic to supplement in, like things like HMB or HICA or BCAAs or MCTs or exogenous ketones and things like that that will protect that lean body mass despite protein being lower.
Okay. خب چیزی که وقت داشتن گفتن خیلی جالب بود. گفتن که بستگی داره هدفتون چی باشه. شما خیلی وقتا تعداد کیتون ها براتون مهمه. مثلا تو خیلی از درمان خیلی از کنسرها، سرطان ها. و بنابراین اونجا هستش که شاید حتی مثلا کربوهیدرات رو بیارید به 0 رو هم برسونید. پروتئین رو بیارید به 15% برسونید. و اینجا اون زمانی هستش که خب تعداد کیتون ها نیازه برای درمان. ولی خودشون اشاره کردن آیا این توی لانگ ترم و توی مدت طولانی برای اینکه بتونی ماسل‌هات و ماهیچه‌هات رو نگهداری آیا روش هلتی هستش؟ گفتن نه. و حتی در زمانی که برای کنسری ها دارن اینو استفاده میکنن باید BCAA و چند تا ساپلمنت دیگه هم اضافه کردن که الان ذهنم نموند ولی توی لایف قاعدتا هستش که بتونن اون بادی مستون و اون ماسل هایی رو که دارید رو بمونه و از دست نرید. یقینا خیلی بستگی داره که چه کسی با چه هدفی کیتوژنیک رو داره اجرا میکنه. حتی این ریشیویی که این نسبتی که برای چربی و پروتئین و کربوهیدرات هستش. و فست هم صحبت کردن که چقدر میتونه کمک بکنه به بالا آوردن کیتون ها. دو تا مسئله هست، بالا آوردن کیتون ها و از وزن از دست دادن. Shawn, do I pick a question or you want to pick
Sure.
one?
Yeah.
Let's see, how about if we don't eat fatty protein, is that okay? I think you did answer that, right?
If you don't eat fatty protein, then you would be much more likely to get into gluconeogenesis. You don't necessarily need fatty protein. What you do need is, like, you just need to have enough fat, like, or you'll just be getting into gluconeogenesis more often, and that'll be counterproductive in terms of keeping your ketones elevated.
Okay. میگن که اگر که خب کاتهایی رو نخوریم که گوشت چرب باشه، خب یه مقدار پروتئین اضافی، وقتی که میخورید گلوکونیوژنسیس تبدیل به گلوکوز میشه. اگر که کات چرب نخورید و این چربی رو که باید همراه گوشت باشه بسیار مورد نظر هستش. Somebody asked if they did keto and they did not get their period, on their period, a lady. How would does that have to do anything with number of ketones? What does keto play on this? I don't think it plays.
It does. Actually, I have some guides on my website on ShawnWells.com where I go through keto and fasting for women. It's been shown pretty consistently that women don't respond as well long term to ketosis, like extended ketogenic diets that are strict, without having some carbohydrate backloading or cyclical ketogenic dieting or targeted ketogenic dieting. Getting some carbs in periodically, however that looks, they don't respond as well to a super strict ketogenic diet long term. And same with fasting. If they are premenopausal and if they are too low a body fat, like say below 12 to 14%, then they can have issues by being amenorrheic, skipping their periods. So extended fasts, ketogenic dieting, it's a little different for women, especially if you do have a regular menstrual cycle, you're premenopausal, and you are lean in terms of body weight.
And that was 12% body fat or
body fat, yeah, 12 to 14. Like that's kind of like a threshold of like, if you're leaner than that, then extended fasting is not going to probably work well for you.
So you're suggesting don't fast every day and have cycles of carbohydrates periodically,
I'm suggesting that if you're below 14% body fat as a woman, to probably not go beyond 24 hours of fasting. And I'm also suggesting that there is some kind of cycling in of carbohydrates if you're doing ketogenic dieting regularly.
Perfect. I'm going to translate that, and after that, I will not ask any questions. I will let you finish with whatever you think is essential.
Okay.
So I'm going to translate that. خب گفتیم درباره فست و کسایی که گفتن که بعضی از خانم‌ها هستن که کیتوژنیک بهشون باعث میشه که پریودشون رو از دست بدن. در خانم‌های این بیشتر اتفاق میفته، خیلی به شدت دایت کیتوژنیک رو به شدت دارن اجرا میکنن، خیلی سختگیرانه و توی مدت طولانی و غذا به اندازه کافی نمیخورن و فستای طولانی میگیرن. ساجستشنشون، استادی که انجام شده این بوده که 14%، اگر زیر 14%، نقطه چیزش اونجاست، 14%، زیر 14% بدنتون چربی داره، یعنی بادی فتتون 14% هستش، یا اینکه در آستانه منپازتون هستین، فارسیش الان به ذهنم نمیاد، یعنی قطع پریودتون هستین بر اثر سن و اینها، و زیر 14% هستید، بیشتر از 24 ساعت فست نکنید و به طور مداوم هر از گاهی کارب دی داشته باشید و کربوهیدرات رو بخورید. Man, I learned a lot today. Less than an
Nice.
hour, and I learned a lot. I'm pretty sure they did as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And I would love if everyone follows me, obviously, for more information here at Ingredientologist. Um, and then all my other channels, I built out YouTube and Pinterest and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all those kinds of things too. But most importantly, on ShawnWells.com, or you can go to Ingredientologist.com. It's the same. I have a lot of free guides on keto, on fasting, on keto and fasting for women, on some of the ingredients that I've been talking about, like vitamin C and mushrooms and zinc and all those
Vitamin
kinds of
D.
things.
The latest
Vitamin
one was vitamin
D3.
D.
Yep. So I have guides there that are very exhaustive and go through all of it. So, and then
Absolutely.
yes, I'll have to save this and share this to my community now and upload it to YouTube as well.
Perfect. Awesome. And I'm going to have somebody save it too. I'm going to have it as a post on my IGTV as well. I'm going to
Nice.
translate that go, because I know if you disconnect, I'm out. گفتن که از دوستان میخوان که مطالب خیلی زیادی دارن تو پیجشون، تو پیج اینستاگرامشون، توی یوتیوبشون و توی وبسایتشون shawnwells.com و ingredientologist.com, right?
Yep.
و هر دو تا وبسایت خیلی چیزهای خوبی دارن، هم توی وبسایتشون درباره ویتامین دی، ویتامین سی، در مورد کیتوژنیک، نحوه اجراش و خیلی تیپ ها دارن برای خانم ها جداگونه، برای آقایون. کیتوژنیک امروز واقعا شاخه به شاخه است و یک برنامه برای هر کس نیست و شان ولز یکی از کسایی هستش که من خیلی ازش یاد گرفتم. تک تک شما هم کسی که کیتوژنیک هست باید شان ولز رو فالو بکنه، به خاطر که مطالب خیلی بی‌نظیری هستش. یقینا هر کس باید بدن خودش رو بشناسه و انقدر دانش داشته باشه که رو بدن خودش کیتوژنیک رو رعایت بکنه. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Thank
you. And I would love to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
So thanks,
We
brother.
sure will. Stay safe, man.
All right, you too.
All right.
See you.
All right.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
You
Bye.
too.